Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Nick.
And this is NFGeeks. Alright, Nick, there's an issue that has been sort of on the forefront of my mind, and that's come up a couple of times. And this is a good opportunity to get a fresh voice on it. And it's not the first time I've done a video on this, and certainly it's been in the air, even around NFGeeks, and that is the issue of typism. And this would be, so this is a good opportunity to get a fresh perspective. And so I'm sure all the viewers know what this is, but just officially to talk about it, is that typism is basically a form of prejudice where stereotypes are used against a specific type, a specific personality type, or maybe even a temperament, and some sort of discrimination or negative thing occurs against that person.
Yeah.
And so, since you're a new voice, let's hear what you have to say about it. So, what are your thoughts? Let's go ahead. Start us off.
Okay. So, when I think typism.
So, are you aware of this? Have you been exposed to this before?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Regarding the Myers-Briggs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When I think typism, I think two things. I think for typism that occurs within the MBTI community, so for the internet stuff, and just for people who have MBTI knowledge.
Sure. Message boards, that kind of thing.
Totally. Or just people who know the system. And so within the MBTI community, and for people without that are not in the MBTI community, meaning people who have no knowledge of what Myers-Briggs is whatsoever.
See, now that's interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I was thinking of it just within it. So that's a new way of looking at it. What do you mean by that?
So to get the obvious out of the way would be within the MBTI community.
Okay.
Being a certain type and not liking this type or this.
Sure. Hell yeah.
These types.
That's a common theme here at NFGeeks. That's come up before, unapologetically.
Yeah, this is the obvious, thinking that there's some kind of lack of working relationship between certain types.
That's right. That's one of the things I've tried to say on NFGeeks. It's not that any one type is objectively good or bad. I think that there are types that have values and orientations and methods that are simply incompatible.
Yeah.
You know, and independently, and they have a self-contained logic, that's fine, but when one type eats another type, it's like oil and water.
Exactly. Sure. I mean, I'm not afraid to state which type that I
really? I can't
famously not get along with.
All right, let's hear it. I cannot wait to hear this.
Okay, as an INFJ, and this isn't pertaining to any INFJ, all INFJs, but for this INFJ, I have famously not gotten along with ESTJs.
Really?
Working-wise, geez, just anything. Yes, I know. Let the comments begin underneath here.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me for two reasons. One is that I certainly have familiarity with ESTJ, one of my oldest best friends with an ESTJ, and on some level I can see it certainly because he's a police sergeant, so sometimes he's a full-blown jerk. Now, he's not a jerk just for the sake of being jerk.
There's a purpose.
There's a specific purpose. There's somebody with a gun. We got to block off this road. Stop arguing with me. You know, but
I mean, from a technical standpoint,
sure.
None of the functions are the same. That's just a preface for me basically leading to there's nothing. See, with an ENFP, with all the same functions as that, they're in a similar order.
Yes, I often talk about it as a circuit.
Yes.
You know, it goes around in a circuit. You know, a very positive circuit.
So
what's happened? Like specifically.
Specifically, in working situations when I was in college, I had to intern at various places. Typically, from my experience, the ESTJs were always found in kind of the more administrative positions.
Sure, right, because they're good at that.
Yep, I was at an advertising agency. I was at a nonprofit, very NF. But within any of these in a couple other corporate structures, there's a lot of ESTJs in the business world. Just how it is.
Yeah, right.
And anytime
they're good managers.
Excellent. Right. I'm not just saying this to be diplomatic. Excellent at what they do, but I would typically be in the creative department working, And anytime I had to deal with an ESTJ, say, in a different department, it would just be... We'd always get what we need to get done, but it was just a very awkward...
Sure.
Not really...
Sure.
Nothing much going on.
ESTJ friend a while ago said, because he's a cop, and he would say, we're friends, and so we're good to each other. I said, but if you worked under me, I would hate you.
And they all hate it.
Right.
It's okay. But that's my particular the type.
Yeah, and I believe this is true about all the types. And even, I'm sure there's NFs. And look, I always say this, mine's, and I've just talked about it before, mine's ESTP. And I feel no love loss on their side. They're not like, oh no, Mike hates me. I've never gotten that impression. They're like, fine. So do you think the ESTJ feels that about you? Do you think it's mutual? Like, you're like, oh, I can't deal with this person. Are they like, oh, God, this stupid INFJ?
Perhaps, yeah. I think definitely kind of seeing me as being a little... I don't want to say so much emotional, but being a little too out there.
Sure. Maybe even sensitive.
Sensitive, yeah. But
because ESTJs aren't exactly known for their sensitivity.
No. And yeah, just a real lack of that NF thing. I'm sure it works for many of you out there that are going to negatively comment on this, but I mean, let's get real. Just didn't work for me.
No, that's I honestly, I think this is a good conversation. I think it's naive to say that, well, I love all the types equally. Oh, we're all going to kumbaya, my lord. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
I think that we could somehow create a community where everybody's doing their thing and it works together, but I don't think there's going to be universal love.
And I'll say this. There's INFJs that I've met that really, I mean, super, like, compatible. But there's been INFJs that I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's true.
Not really my...
Yeah, I've had the ENFPs where I've been, like, annoyed at their ENFP-ness stuff.
Yeah, it's... Yeah. And that is what it is. So, getting back to something we were going to talk about. Now, this could relate to another theory I have about typism outside of the MBTI.
Yeah, I'm dying to hear this because this has never occurred to me. So you're see, new voices. All right, let's hear it.
Where I've experienced this, and this is for people who have no knowledge of Myers-Briggs or vague knowledge or just not much interest or at all. I just found out about MBTI maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I've studied it pretty aggressively in the last year or two that I've learned it. I think a lot of ENTs get very hooked on MBTI. Anyway, what I was going to say is I only got into it 2 years ago. That doesn't mean I've been an INFJ for 2 years. It means I've been an INFJ ever since birth.
Sure, right.
Where it exists outside of the MBTI community is for people who don't know it. You're still an ISTP or a ENFJ or ENFP, regardless if you know Myers-Briggs. This is something that I think we were talking about this last week, where if more people got familiar with Myers-Briggs, it would be the kind of thing where instead of you can still not get along, but there's still an understanding of, oh, this is why. Where it exists outside of it is just any interpersonal relationship where you're dealing with a type that's not your type, and you have no explanation for why things are going wrong. Like I said, it could still be two of the same type.
Sure.
It could still be two of the same type, not just not getting along at all. So I mean, there's still clear vagueness in my theory, but I do think that there's something to thinking. Typism isn't just within the type community.
Sure.
The MBTI community.
Right. It's happening beyond it, but they're unaware.
They're just unaware.
Right. Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah, basically, long story short, they're just unaware of what it is.
They don't have the letters. They don't understand the functions, but they do know that type of person makes me crazy.
Because I can say this: in the last 2 years I've been studying it, clearly people have still, I've still not gotten along with every single person, and I've gotten into disagreements and certain conflicts. But at least now, see, as a feeler, my first gut feeling is always like, oh God. But after thinking about it, I go, oh well, let me at least try to get to the bottom of this. Maybe we didn't get along. Maybe they're a different type. And then kind of going back, I go,
sure.
Oh yeah, they're an ESTJ. I can't wait to hear what people have to say.
Sure. What? Oh, believe me, there'll be all sorts of thumbs down.
Go for it. Yeah.
It's always they do that.
Yeah.
It's okay. I still love you. All right. Now I'm curious about this. Have you ever? I want to start asking this to other NFs and other types. Have you personally felt that you've been on the bad end of typism? Because I'm really on the fence about this. I mean, I don't like prejudice. I don't like racism, sexism, ageism, homophobia. You know, I don't like any of those things. But there's a part of me that's on the fence, so I get that. But the other part of me is like, this is baddie. Okay. Now, granted, I don't want to admit this. I've never felt that I've been on the receiving end of this. You know, maybe it's just my own craziness. But people say, if people say to me, ENFPs don't have their shit together. I'm not like, no, you typists. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. I don't have my shit together. I've never had my shit together. They say these things and they resonate. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I don't feel offended because it seems real to me. But still, other people certainly feel some kind of prejudice or they're expressing it. Have you ever felt any prejudice because you were an INFJ in any capacity?
The whole idea that I came up with behind typism outside of the MBTI community kind of occurred to me with throughout my life. I think of how I was with my mom, who's an SJ.
Which SJ?
She's an ISFJ.
Oh,
also like my girlfriend.
Right, and I won't talk about your Oedipal complex at all. So go ahead.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. The doctor is the same ethnicity as my mom completely, and exactly. So yeah, it happens. I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah, it's and I always thought to myself, like, what was it that we always got along, but it was more of a like, you're communicating in the same style as me, but what you want from me in terms of what I'm gonna communicate, even though it's gonna come at you in a very similar way, you're gonna receive the communication similarly. It's not what you want to hear. So
sure. Do you feel that it's been a prejudice, like you were prejudiced against, like you were
totally?
Really?
Most of my family is SJs.
Yeah. See, boy, a lot of NFs have that issue.
Yeah. In even
it's
something
like God's trying to get us.
Oh yeah. What I found was what they want. They want the details. I'm not stating anything new by saying that. They want the details. They want to know about how your day was. They like, and not just like, how was your day? And I say, oh, it was great. I did this and it was a great experience or whatever. They want to find out not so much how was your day, but what was your day? What did you do? And say an instance with the kind of a typism thing that I experienced with my mom was always her just being totally intolerant of being vague about details. It could be
somehow there was something wrong with you.
Oh yeah. I could give certain explanations about things and kind of my implications and my interpretation of anything.
Sure.
Not really that important. It was more or less. You met with that person. What was their name? Where did they live? Who did they? They know this person. Did they know that person? Where did they go to school?
That's great.
What did they do?
My sister talks like that.
And I get burnt out on that. Fast. I mean, it takes minutes for me to just be like, I gotta go.
Has there ever been a point where you were offended because somebody said something like, well, INFJs are mystical, or INFJs are passive aggressive, or INFJs are what's another one? Writers. All the INFJs are poets. Have you ever been offended by any of those types of generalizations and found them to be inaccurate?
Not directly.
I mean, directly in terms of inaccuracy, or efface them?
No one's ever said you're an INFJ. I don't like INFJs because of this or that. To me,
but even if they say it like this, so watch, I'll say it. INFJs are mystical, so you must be mystical. How do you feel about that? Does that feel like an insult, like a generalization, like
in a way, because to me, what's mystical actually makes sense.
Okay.
You know, like I was saying about how introverted intuition works for me. It's more about just connecting the dots, and I think the way it comes out, because a lot of times even being an introvert is like what you have in your head just doesn't come out the way you want it to. Sure. So it comes out as being very vague at times, being vague and just it could lack a lot of continuity. Whereas it's in my head, I'm like, damn, I probably sound this way. So sometimes I'm aware of like coming off as being.
So you're not directly offended by it.
No, not necessarily. It's not really that big a deal.
Okay.
It's more when it's experienced. Like if I'm in a situation where I'm not with people who are tolerant of the kinds of things that an NF would do.
So it's more of a typism, like you're an NF and that means you're a jackass.
Yeah,
that kind of issue.
It's like I said. This is what got me thinking.
Everything about your qualities are bad.
This is what I'm saying about typism outside of MBTI.
Sure, that's a great addition to this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, we have to finish up, but that outside. I've never heard that before, so hopefully we'll get some comments about that. Good job.
Thanks.